We have a panel on rethinking data intelligence and execution with Satya at Emergence and Carrol with Andela, being moderated by VentureBeat's own James.
Hello. Oh, we do have audio. Good grief, they're all staring at us. Sure that was going to happen? Welcome, everyone. My name is James Thomason. I'm a senior technology contributor here at VentureBeat, and I'm here with my distinguished panelists. Before I introduce them, we'll just try to frame things up a little bit. Today, we're here to answer one of the most, I think, interesting questions in the AI space, which is what happens when you stop using AI just to analyze data and you start using it to actually act autonomously on data. And that's what your company is all about. Satya, you're the CEO of Andela. You just raised Emergence AI. You just raised $100 million to help tackle the autonomous agent problem. Tell us a little bit about what is recursive intelligence?
So, well, first of all, thanks so much for being here with Carrol and James and in front of this wonderful audience. So what we're basically all about at Emergence is we're attempting to build agentic systems that can autonomously take actions in the digital space. And that sounds very vague and very broad. So what we're trying to basically do is to put some filters or bounds on the problem and say, can agentic systems essentially analyze data and automate across the entire data pipeline? And the idea here is, today, something like 97% of all enterprise data is unseen, and it's unacted on. So while systems of record have existed for the past 15, 20 years, people haven't actually done anything with it, and the very little that's happening in data analytics and data science more broadly tends to not really produce the kinds of insights that people want in the time that they want them to do so. So what Emergence is all about is trying to build agents to do the human job of working across databases, data warehouses, across sources of data, and ultimately writing machine learning models to pull insights out. So what data engineers and data scientists do, we're trying to do with AI agents. And in this context, recursive intelligence is the ability for a system to figure out when to write its own agents, when to automate things, when to verify things, when to basically invoke the human in the loop, and how to work with humans and with data, machine-scale data, to pull insights out in real time. So that's basically what we're attempting to do at Emergence.
Awesome. Carrol Chang, you're the CEO of Andela. And you're connecting 150,000 developers, technologists across 135 countries with enterprises. You serve clients like GitHub and Microsoft. You're seeing firsthand how the agentic shift is starting to transform the workforce. I know recently you conducted a new survey that reveals junior and senior developers seem to be adopting AI at approximately the same rate, but over 40% of those developers are concerned about AI replacing their jobs in the near future. And that's an interesting divergence because AI adoption seems to be happening a little slower than forecast, and so maybe some of those fears are unfounded. And tell us a little bit more about Andela.
Hi, and thanks everyone for hosting us here. At Andela, we have been in the business of training high-skilled remote technology workers for over a decade. And what is happening right now with the rise of agentic technology is a massive shift. And we at Andela see it not as an occupational threat, which is how it's being talked about everywhere, but really as a generational opportunity. And so we are working with Emergence to see how can we take our developers and retrain them and upskill them for the new kinds of developer jobs, like the ones who are going to oversee these systems that Satya and the team at Emergence have built. Because even though right now we're not seeing 100% of jobs that come in are specifically for agentic or AI engineers, we know that this is a tsunami that is coming, and we are starting to see that demand. And so it is really on us to prepare for that massive shift.
Satya, Emergence just raised $100 million to solve the data deluge problem. For enterprises drowning in data they can't process today, what does that breaking point actually look like?
I mean, a lot of so one of the things I said earlier was that 97% of enterprise data is unseen. Okay, so I'll start giving you some concrete examples. So if you look at most of the manufacturing sector, you take semiconductors; it's a field that we're very familiar with, uh, and you take any large semiconductor chip design company. Okay, and most of the U.S. semiconductor companies are all fabless companies. They're basically designing chips here and they're getting them fabbed in places like Taiwan, TSMC, etc. So what the real world problem these companies have is there is data. So chip manufacturing is a very involved process, 5,000 steps of nanoscale engineering, and there's all kinds of measurements that happen. And at the end, there's something called wafer final test. And what actually happens is they're looking at something like hundreds of gigabytes of data that's coming off of these manufacturing lines on a daily basis. And within the data, there's all kinds of information that's buried that's really important to them. For instance, how well are my chips yielding? Are the chips at the edge of the wafer yielding than chips at the center? Are circuits of a particular density better and yielding more powerfully than circuits of different density? That has implications on chip design. So this is a real world data problem. And if you actually have insights that you're pulling on a daily basis, you can actually go back and redesign chips, improve the manufacturing process, save millions of dollars, and in fact, even increase your revenue in the process. Very large ROI attached to processing this data in real time. So the ability to do this in real time on a daily basis is what agentic systems should offer, and the human in the loop is basically there to ensure that these systems are actually pulling the insights out that are verifiable, that are correct, that are within the guardrails, and so on. So that's kind of a real world example of the kinds of things that we're doing, and that's an example of the data deluge problem that we're talking about.
And Carrol, across the 150,000 developers that you connect with globally, are you seeing demand patterns start to shift dramatically? Are enterprises struggling to find people that can handle these traditional data pipelines?
So the U.S. Data Science Institute came out with a recent report that said that by next year, 2026, the demand for data scientists is going to be 50% more than the supply. And there's other data that says that data scientists, data analysts, these are among the top 3 most in-demand technology jobs. Certainly, we see that already at Andela. But there's this the job itself is changing. And so that's the important thing we have to realize is that does it make sense to bring more people into the network that have today's skills, or should we figure out a way to train people for tomorrow's job, right? When the Wright brothers landed the first airplane in 1903, it's not like the next year a bunch of newspaper classified ads were posted for pilots. But right, we had to prepare and we had to figure out what does that job mean to become a pilot? What does it mean to operate an airborne vehicle? And so that was something that was figured out over decades. And we are seeing this tsunami of demand come for this type of job that doesn't really exist today. So what we have to do is figure out what exactly are those tasks in the new job? How do we write those job profiles? How do we give them real training on real technology, on real enterprise clients in the real world so that we can prepare for that new demand.
Satya, quickly, could you help the audience understand, when it comes to traditional ETL, can you give a real-world example of where that's failing?
Yeah, so I mean, one of the issues with the problem Carol just mentioned, which is there's far fewer data science and data engineering candidates than the jobs that exist, is broadly what happens is, like I said, enterprises have a huge amount of data that's unprocessed. People are writing ETL, systems change. Okay, broadly enterprise systems are updated for a variety of reasons. Data changes, system change, patterns of data change, and if you're going to continuously have to rewrite ETLs to do this, you're simply not going to keep up with the pace of data. We talk about the 3-4 V's of data: volume, velocity, veracity of data. You can't keep up with it, right? So the traditional ways of writing ETLs, extracting data, cleaning data, deduping data, it's just not going to keep pace with the demand that's out there to attempt to pull actionable insights out of this. And this is where kind of getting the human in the loop, getting agentic systems to do this, but having humans trained on working with these agentic systems is kind of the new economy. That's the economy Carol's talking about.
And the beautiful part about this is that ETLs, which are highly repetitive and oftentimes rote tasks, are the exact kind of work that a lot of software engineers don't like doing. And so we need to talk about this as it's not like agentic coding is taking your job away, but it is in fact freeing you from these kinds of tasks that you don't really like to do anyway. And so what Emergence has done is they've focused on some really smart use cases in IT back office, like ETLs or test automation, another thing that software engineers famously don't like to do. And it's taking these jobs and it's saying, hey, let's free you from this. Let's have agents do this. And now your new job is to figure out how to oversee this system, how to do code review, how to be a systems thinker, right? And that is the new job. So we're changing the nature of the work. We're not taking it away.
Satya, let's talk about the transformation, recursive intelligence. Agents creating agents. I mean, some of this sounds a little bit like science fiction. Could you walk us through real deployment and how does this actually work?
Yeah, I mean, look, one of the big stories that's happening in AI today, and you saw Andrew Ng talk about this earlier, AI's ability to code. Okay, it's actually the biggest story in AI as far as we're concerned. Okay, so what we're seeing today is LLMs are getting better and better at producing code, but you still need a human in the loop. So if you look at Claude Code or you look at things like Cursor, a developer is typically auditing the code and verifying the code and correcting the code and so on. So what we are attempting to do, and we're kind of the new, in some sense, the new frontier is, can you actually marry an LLM's ability to produce code with an agent's ability or an intelligent system's ability to play the role of the developer and verify the code, execute the code, correct the code, feed in domain knowledge, feed in domain information. So that's basically this idea of agentic coding. Okay, and how well agentic coding can actually do certain tasks is what Emergence is attempting to do. And as Carrol said, what we're trying to do is, so I mean, just to give the audience a sense, agentic coding is a very big idea. In theory, a system that can produce code, that can verify code, that can automate code should be able to recreate everything, including the internet and including the AI that actually is powering these systems, right? But in practice, we're very far away from that, and you could argue that's kind of AGI. And so, kind of what we're trying to do is to take this idea and put some bounds on it, and just use it to do things like Python and SQL. Coding, and in particular things like getting AI to create other agents, getting AI to create machine learning models, getting AI to write SQL language, SQL code, and things like that. So these are the things that we're attempting to get very good at, and in the process, this opens up a variety of applications across the data pipeline that human developers who have some sense of analytical skills, some sense of software development, can actually come in and audit and verify and essentially work with these systems to solve the labor shortage that exists in fields like data science. So that's kind of, I'm trying to just package it all together, but that's the method behind the madness.
And quickly, I mean, this represents a shift from SQL and Python and other deterministic means to doing, predictive, right? So what does that mean quickly for precision? Like how do you deal with that?
Yeah, I mean, so there's a couple things here. I mean, at its core, this is both an AI planning and an AI verification problem, right? And precision in this case is about verification. Systems can verify, but humans are far better verifiers. Humans still have metacognitive skills. They have an ability to translate the business requirements and domain knowledge into analyzing whether systems that are producing output are actually producing good output. So failures can happen in various ways, and one of the failures that's hardest to correct for are failures where the system seemingly gave you an output that looks reasonable, but a well-trained engineer, or in this case a developer, and that's what we're working with Andela very carefully on, will be able to say, no, I'm not entirely sure this is correct, go back and redo it. Right? Carrol, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I think, and it is these kinds of skills that today's seniors are the best equipped to do because they have the critical thinking, the systems thinking, and the training in order to spot these kinds of issues. So we really do need seniors to step up and learn some of these new skills.
Up front, we said that 40% of developers, Carol, still feel that AI will put their jobs at risk. What's driving the disconnect between the technology's capabilities and developers' actual usage patterns? Are we actually reskilling, or how should organizations prepare?
I think the way that organizations manage change is going to be the single most important factor in the success of agentic technology. And that 40% stat is interesting when you break it down because what we see in our data is that US-based developers, you'll see over 50% express this anxiety about AI taking their jobs, right? So the majority express that fear. But internationally, we see that number is closer to the 20s. Right? And so like what's responsible for the shift? Now when you think about technology adoption curves, traditionally you think about an S curve, right? It looks like this. And the beginning of the S curve looks like a hockey stick. That's that sought after thing that all of us who build technology are trying to achieve. And I think that what we're missing is that this profession of software development, it is not going to follow this kind of adoption when it comes to coding agents. Instead, it's going to follow more of a grief curve, which looks more like a change curve. And the beginning of that curve doesn't look like a hockey stick. It looks like a J. There's a critical difference because you start off with shock and denial, and then you go into what's called a pit of despair. And you have to get out of that pit of despair. And I think, and we're very big fans of VentureBeat, so I'm not blaming tech press, but I will say that if you read the headlines that are out there, right, it's all about death. It's like, oh, the agents are coming for your jobs. Oh, this is the death of the junior developer. Like, then what do we expect? People are going to experience shock and denial, which are the beginning stages of grief, right? And grief is a very serious change journey. And so the companies that recognize what's going on and they're able to actually say, here is how you take a population of people through massive change, those are going to be the ones that win. And so what do we have to do? First, we should probably change the terminology that we're using. Instead of the jobs being taken away, your job is evolving. Right? So we have to just change literally the language that we're using. Second, we have to acknowledge that this is going on. And if people feel anxiety, we have to acknowledge that that's a valid feeling, right? Because people need that in the beginning. Then, how do you help them see what is possible and how their jobs are going to evolve and probably get more exciting, right? Paint a very clear picture about what do the new job duties entail. And at a really detailed level and with examples and give people the right training to visualize this, right? And again, I believe that when we do that, people will actually see that they are freed from some of the most rote, repetitive, unexciting aspects of the developer job. I believe this is an incredibly exciting moment that can be very energizing, but the companies that are going to win are going to be the ones who know how to manage people through this change.
And Satya, I'm going to have to give you the last word here. For an enterprise that's thinking maybe we need agentic AI, but we can't bet the company on this, what's your recommended pilot approach to get started? And where do you start in sectors like financial services without breaking compliance?
Yeah, thank you, Jim. So we announced our platform called Craft just this morning. VentureBeat covered it. Thank you so much. Yes, yeah. So Craft is basically this platform that enables you to do a variety of data automations out of the bat. Okay. So one of the things that allows you to do is to try some quick POCs yourself as an enterprise. Even before you talk to us or hire developers to do anything, just go there and try some things out. But ultimately, what we're attempting to do is to have this platform be a launching pad for enterprises to build governable, safe, reliable agentic systems with the appropriate guardrails in place. And enterprise adoption, arguably, it is very slow because people are very confused about what to do with AI, where is the ROI, is my data safe, what's actually going on. We completely understand that. So one of the things we did with Craft is we basically said you can deploy this in your own premises, on your VPC, on-prem. It actually doesn't matter. You should be able to take it, deploy the platform, try it out, We take our agents to your data as opposed to have your agents come to us, data come to our agents. So these are some basic, I would say, table stakes these days for people to come in and attempt to build something. But the final word on all this is, the confusion that exists about agents today is twofold. One is because people actually don't know what the systems can do and what's actually worth doing, and two, they're not entirely sure how safe these things are. So we're taking care of safety, we're taking care of guardrails, we're taking care of verifiability, and so on and so forth. But the responsibility on the part of the enterprise and on the part of the vendors and the developers is to basically ensure that these systems are being built to deliver really impactful ROIs for enterprises, right? And if the ROI is there, then they will adopt it and they'll embrace it and they'll see the productivity gains. And if we appropriately build the human in the loop and give the human the role to provide the additional layer of guardrails and tuning, then this is a revolution that will absolutely happen. So we're in early stages, but we are very bullish that there's real ROI here.
And rapid fire now, because they're going to give us the hook any moment now. So quick response. Looking ahead 18 months, what will be the clearest signal that an enterprise has successfully made the agentic transition? Carrol.
The clearest signal of success is going to be that enterprises knew how to manage change. And so with this massive technological shift that's happening,
I'm sorry,
it's not
Carrol,
going to
we have to end.
I'm sorry.
So sorry.
They're cutting
We're
us
at
off.
time.
Sorry, we're out of time. Thank you so
Feel free
much.
to grab time with our speakers after. Give them a round of applause. Thank you.